podcast, Jim Sterne talks about big data in digital and marketing. So stay tuned. So welcome everyone to Future of Data podcast. Today we have with us Jim Sterne, and he is a founder of Digital Analytics Association and a producer for Marketing Evolution Experience, and we'll talk about that in a minute. A brief bio. So Jim Sterne focuses his 35 years in sales and marketing on creating and strengthening customer relationship through digital communications. He sold business computers to companies that had never owned one in 1980s, consulted and keynoted about online marketing in 1990s, and founded a conference and a professional associations around digital analytics in 2000s. Following his humorous Devil's Data Dictionary, Sterne has just published his 12th book, Artificial Intelligence for Marketing, Practical Applications. Sterne produces the E-Matrix Summit from 2002 to 2017 and now produces the Marketing Evolution Experience. He was co-founder and served for 17 years as the board chair of Digital Analytics Association. Jim was named one of the 50 most influential people in digital marketing by Top Marketing magazine in the UK and identified as one of the top 25 hot speakers by National Speaker Association. With that, Jim, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be included.
Beautiful. So why don't you walk us through your journey? It's. I think what I was blown away when I was picking up looking at your profile was how much depth of experience you had throughout this marketing evolution. And marketing has been in the forefront of using data and analytics and sort of predicting the behavior and sort of adjusting to it. And you have been there. So yeah, why don't you walk us through your journey?
Well, it started coming out of school when my first job was customer service. And my job was using a basic computer command line interface to find out why the company had shipped to the customer the wrong thing. So my very first step into business was from the customer's perspective, and that's just stayed with me the whole time. And it was also using computers to help the customer. That was a customer service job, wasn't very interesting, wasn't a lot of fun. And then I answered an ad in the newspaper for selling Apple IIe's out of a retail store. That was in the early 1980s. And it said, no experience necessary. And I said, I qualify. I've never sold anything and I don't know computers, but I'll give it a try. And since then, my job has been to explain how this equipment can help people think. How can you help me remember things? How can you help me process things? And that's pretty much been the theme of my career ever since.
Interesting. And what do you do nowadays? Like what's your day-to-day activity nowadays looks like?
It's still writing and consulting and then producing the Marketing Evolution Experience, which is bringing the idea of digital analytics, online marketing analysis to the marketing department. That's been my role for the last 17 years. And it's, on the one hand, the people who are in the lead, there's a whole lot of new stuff to learn. And the people who are behind, there's an enormous amount of things to learn. So the audience for my conference is anybody in marketing who wants to improve their knowledge of using data to inform marketing.
Interesting. And what is Digital Analytics Association? If you can just give a quick plug on that. What's that?
The Digital Analytics Association is a professional organization. I started the E-Matrix Summit in 2002. And in 2004, the audience said, hey, this is great, but we want something more than just a conference once a year. We want to start an association because then web analytics, now digital analytics, was brand new. And we didn't know what our job title should be. We didn't know what our responsibilities, what our job descriptions were. So we formed the Digital Analytics Association to create a competency framework. What are the skills and knowledge you need to do each of the tasks that we do in this job? What are our job descriptions? What are people being paid? Let's do a salary survey. Let's create some education. And around all of that, let's create community of people to help each other figure out how to do this job. So it is a full-on professional development association and community organization to help people who are responsible for getting their marketing department up to speed on digital analytics, on measuring the success of your website.
Interesting. Thank you for walking us through that. So now let's talk about your journey. So over years, how have you seen marketing evolved? Like what's your takeaway on what you have seen and marketing's adoption of technology, and what are some of the opportunities that exist that you have seen, that whatever you can share?
Well, but it's changed over time, and it continues to change. So in the beginning, it was all transactional. Can I record a sale? And then, can I back up that further into Salesforce automation? Can I keep track of the people I'm trying to sell to? And then customer relationship management. If I have a database of customers, can I use that somehow to tell me how to interact with them? And what should be the next offer? What should be the next product? What should be the next outreach, whether it's phone or email or direct mail? Database marketing came along and tried to switch that up a little bit, where I was really using analysis on the data to say, well, these kinds of people responded best to this kind of interaction. Therefore, those people might be able to be, I might be able to get lift if I present them this message in this way. Well, then came the internet, and that blew apart everything. Suddenly, the amount of data I had exploded. It wasn't just, we ran this ad, we sent them this email, they responded at this time, they bought this product, they came back and bought again. Like, that's not a lot of information to have, although it's very valuable and hugely reliable. But suddenly online, I had behavior, I had mouse movements, I had page views. Did they receive the email? Did they open the email? Did they click on the link? Did they go to the website? How many pages did they drill down? Suddenly, this huge amount of information was thrown at us. And at first, we were just trying to decide, well, what of this is important? Number of pages, time on site, bounce rate. And of course, we know all of this is interesting, but not horribly useful until you bring all of it together. And now with machine learning, we can make it useful again. So it's a step-by-step arc of, we have a machine that can remember things. Then we have enough data that we can do some analysis on it. Then we can carry that far forward. And every step that we take, because we have more data and because we have more compute power and because we have more technology, we can do more and more impressive things. So my personal journey is just being enthused about all of that and wanting to share that with everybody, to say, gee, did you know that you can use these tools and this data to discover these things about customer in order to improve the customer experience, which goes way back to my beginning in the customer service department.
Interesting. And we hear the word digital a lot. So what is that, and what, if you can walk us through what's going on there as well? We'll resume after a short break. This part of the podcast is brought to you by First Friday Fair, fastest AI-powered way to find your next opportunity. Check out the website firstfridayfair.tao.ai and find your next dream job. Let's get back to the podcast.
So it started out as the internet. Instead of my relationship being a loyalty card, I walk into the store and I use my loyalty card, or I buy airline tickets and they keep track of my miles. This is digital information. It is that behavioral information online. So it was web analytics. Come to my website. I record when you show up and what pages you look at and what you click on and when you leave. And did you buy anything? Did you put anything in your shopping cart? And as web analysts, we were then made responsible for measuring email marketing and search marketing and social media and it wasn't just web analytics, it was digital analytics. All of that stuff that happens online. Well, oh wait, now it's also mobile. So that's digital as well. So what is not digital? Well, direct mail. You know, yes, we have a database, so there's digital information, but direct mail, outdoor advertising. Well, now we've got kiosks outside. We have billboards that are electronic. So pretty much the digital analyst has become the keeper of the response data. If we throw an ad on television, we're going to see a change in behavior on the website. We're going to see a change of behavior in mobile app downloads and app use. So digital analytics is pretty much marketing analytics bottom up. It is all of that little granular detail put together bottom up. Now, top down is marketing analytics that we've been doing for decades, which is mix modeling. I spend this much on this channel, this channel, this channel, this channel. Here are the results. If I move some of those numbers around, how do the results change? That mix modeling, very sophisticated statistics, but it is top down. It's looking at big numbers and what does that mean I should do, as opposed to looking at all this granular stuff to see, well, what was the result?
Interesting. And what's your take on the use of analytics in the marketing industry? Like, what's your take on that?
Yes, inevitable. I based my career on it. We've always tried to measure marketing and advertising, and we've done a pretty good job. And then again, when digital came along, suddenly we were faced with all this new data. So the possibilities for using data for marketing are tremendous. And where are we now is not really a valid question, because some people are way out ahead of everybody else and some people are still way behind. So where is any company at any one point? The question of who is doing it really well? Okay, well, there's the usual suspects. Of course, Google, of course, Amazon, of course, Apple, sure. But what about just regular companies? Is Campbell's Soup doing a good job? Well, there are some people at Campbell's working on some campaigns that are doing some measurement that's really leading, that's really thought leadership. It is the latest and greatest, the highest technology, the most advanced thinking, but it's not the whole company. It's a group of people who are doing an amazing job. And I would love to have them get in touch with me and tell me the whole story, but of course it's company confidential, so we'll never know. But we'll buy more soup.
Yes, we certainly do. So I think another interesting area that I see whenever we talk about marketing is, so many times they don't know what is selling and they don't know what's going on, and they're always in the world of analytics, as you rightly pointed out. What are some of the things that you see where you see misuse of analytics in marketing? Like, what are some of the opportunities that you see that where people get it wrong or they are overdoing it, and what do you think about that?
Yeah, so there's three ways that it goes wrong. The first is not understanding the data. So if I am a marketing person and I care about conversion rate, and I dedicate myself to improving the conversion rate, it's pretty clear that I'm not really understanding the ecosystem of data, because conversion rate doesn't live alone. If I am compensated, if I'm paid a bonus for doubling conversion rate, I can do that in a week by stopping all advertising. Just stop advertising. Then the only people who come to my website are the people who already know about me and already want to buy, and my conversion rate goes sky high, and I collect my bonus, and the company goes out of business. So looking at data the wrong way, not understanding how all the data fit together, making assumptions about how data is collected, which is complicated and messy, and it's a struggle. And just assuming that I look at a dashboard and I understand what's going on because I'm looking at a dashboard is mistake number one. It's why I have a little problem with data democratization. Oh, just give everybody access to Google Analytics. They can figure it out themselves. No, they can't. Anybody who looks at Google Analytics for the first time looks at that homepage and goes, well, this is what must be important because Google says this is what's important. What do I do with it? Well, it's not what's important to your company in your industry at this moment. It's just the generic homepage for Google Analytics. So that's a really tough one. The second problem is I have something to prove. I want to prove that my spend on search is more valuable than your spend on television. And I want to get the data that shows that we should spend more on search. I should be able to hire 5 more people. We should cut down the television spend, or we should cut down the catalog spend, or whatever it is. That's using data actively to make a point that's not listening to the data. It's just using it. It's, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. And you can torture data to tell you anything you want.
Right.
So number one, I don't understand what I'm looking at. Number two, I'm using it for my own personal agenda. Then the third one is when people are too dependent on the data. So I ask my people in marketing a question and they say, we don't know, we can't answer that question. We don't have enough data. Our data isn't clean enough. It's going to take us another 6 months to retag everything and clean the data, and then we can give you an answer. And then that's too late. I need an answer now. And I need that combination of gut feel informed by data rather than depending only on data. That's a horrible mistake. Now, imagine these three. I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm using it to put forward my own agenda, and I'm overconfident with the data. As Venn diagram, 3 circles overlap. And when you get all of those together, it's a horrible mess.
Wow. I think that's interesting. Because if I look at marketing, and if I talk to my marketing fellow friends, they're always on a sort of struggle to find the next hack in the social construct that can get them inside sort of their product into cultural norms. They're trying to figure out all those small signals that they can exploit and amplify to their advantage. And when you hear about those, the first thing that comes to your mind is, hey, I should be spending a lot more time understanding what's going on. And then you're spot on. The bias is one of the problem. That hey, if I have a personal bias, then probably the data will tell me the same thing. How do you fix that? What is the resolution? Because bad data, I may not know bad data on hindsight. I think one of the things that I always pitch about someone is, I met one of the product manager of BlackBerry, and he said that, hey, we were killing our numbers, right? So I was just hitting, like, we were what we were told to do. Then why the hell? What happened, right? So now that's an interesting sort of dichotomy there, that hey, I don't know bad data unless I, after the fact, all right, whatever, that the data was really bad. And then bias is definitely one of the thing that I'm terrified about, and I think that's you rightly picking that. So yeah, what's the resolve?
It all goes back to listening to the customer. If you listen to the numbers, if you execute to the plan, and that's all you do, then that's all you will ever accomplish. But if you continually listen to the customer, and that means, and what we have tried to do with data is use it as a proxy for customer opinion, for customer intent. Because they clicked here, because they opened that email, because they bought 2, because they were here last week. Therefore, and then I make an assumption. And from that assumption, I can make a hypothesis, and I can run a test to see if I'm right. And then I have actual data. But I can also just reach out and do a survey. I can ask my customers. Now, everybody loves to quote the Henry Ford and Steve Jobs. Take your pick. If all you do is talk to your customers, Henry Ford says you ask your customers what they want, they'll say faster horses. Steve Jobs says you ask your customers what they want, they will never invent an iPod. Okay, so yes, there is a need for innovation. Once you have innovated something, then you go to your customers and you say, what do you think? And some of them will say, oh, that's too new. That scares me. I don't like it. And some will go, wow, this is the best thing since sliced bread. I love it. And so you listen to those people. You don't exclude one from the other. You don't do only data. You don't do only voice of customer. You got to bring them both together. And then the third part is gut feel. That is, what is your industry knowledge? What is your experience? This is why the idea of two guys in a garage or in a dorm room inventing something amazing is this iconic story, because it doesn't happen all the time. Yes, there's Facebook. Yes, there's two guys in a garage creating Hewlett Packard, and there's two guys in a garage creating Apple. And these are iconic stories because that's rare. Mostly it's people just doing hard work, listening to customers, watching the numbers, and responding with their experience and their gut feel to make something that is viable. If you dedicate yourself to making something that's absolutely incredible, well, good, you're an artist. Thank you for your creativity, but that's not necessarily a path to success.
We'll resume after a short break. This part of the podcast is brought to you by First Friday Fair, fastest AI-powered way to find your next opportunity. Check out the website firstfridayfair.tao.ai and find your next dream job. Let's get back to the podcast. Interesting. And in your sort of, you have a good vantage point into the industry of analytics and in marketing and customer experience and digital. So when you talk to a fellow marketer, or when you talk to a fellow sort of a digital strategist or executive, how do you gauge them? Like, how do you measure an overdone analysis versus you're on a right path? Like, how do you measure them?
Pretty much by asking them what keeps them awake at night. If the response is, I just have to figure out how to improve my numbers. This is a mid to low level executive who is being pressured to turn the crank and get the results, regardless of strategy, regardless of vision. They're just trying to stoke the fires and make the machine work faster. If their response is, I'm trying to understand where my industry is going and what my customers want and how to create the next breakthrough product, then, oh, okay, well, they're on the creative side, they're on the strategy side, that's great. Can I help them understand how data can help them better? I don't want to blind them with data, but I don't want them to ignore the data. And this is where the future marketing leaders are coming from. It's the people who can take vision and information, bring it together and make sense out of it instead of leaning too far one way or the other.
Interesting.
And then, in analytics, the most common problem that I'm working with trying to help people use analytics is implementing it. Yeah, we got a web analytics tool, or we're tracking our email, but then we brought in a consultant who said all our data was wrong and we had to start over again. So we threw out that tool and we got another one, and we spent a year putting all that together and collecting data. And now we're told that because the marketplace has changed or the technology has changed, our data is bad again. So we threw out that tool. And then the fourth or fifth tool, they realized, well, maybe it's our process that's wrong. All of these tools can't be bad. Maybe we're not doing it right. And so, it's people, process, and technology, and technology is the easiest to blame. So stop, get Adobe Analytics, get Google Analytics, whatever, and stick with it and get your data to work. And this is unfortunately where the majority of time is spent in analytics, collecting and cleaning and integrating the data so that you can do analysis. It's not just turn it on and start coming up with insights. It's a royal pain. I want to build a house. Okay, great. But first you have to make bricks and you have to test the bricks. And did you put enough straw in? Did you fire it in the oven long enough? And once you get that right and you've made enough bricks, now we can build a house. Oh, did you think about how big that house should be and how many rooms it needs? Oh, I have to do information architecture. Okay. So there is process, and we've come a long way of learning how to approach all of this. And if you are a brand new startup with no legacy systems and a lot of money, there are some really smart people who can help you do everything from soup to nuts. But that describes nobody. Everybody has history. Everybody has old machines and old databases and old processes and politics and no budget. And that's the reality. That's where we're all living.
Interesting. And from your vantage point, what are some of the things that you think industry folks get it wrong about marketing analytics? Like, what are some of the things that you say, hey, you're doing it, maybe you're thinking it wrong or something? What do you call those?
Not appreciating complexity is probably the biggest problem. Because this number says this and that number says that, therefore I should do these things. There are 100 other variables in the mix. Statisticians will tell you that it is pretty easy to analyze and predict what a population of people will do. It is impossible to predict what one person will do. You can't. If I take 1 million birds, I know they're all going to fly north in the summer and south. But one bird, I have no idea what that bird's going to do. So assuming that I can look at a few numbers and predict that if I show you this picture with that headline, you will buy, can't do that. So it is the mistake that marketers make is thinking that the numbers lead to obvious conclusions. When the best we can hope for is that they lead to better questions.
Interesting. And what is to you a well-oiled marketing machine? Like, so what is the definition of a smooth running company that you say, hey, amazing? Yeah.
Good question. So, people, process, technology. And then for marketing, it is also vision and strategy. Do I have a clear idea of the brand in the eyes of the public and the brand that I am trying to get them to think of, and how to bring those together? And can I create new products and services that perpetuate that brand and perpetuate the customer's love of brand? And then can I put together all the systems that are necessary to make that all happen? I want to send out an email blast and have ads in magazines and an ad on television. And I want to engage a bunch of social influencers all around a product launch. Do I have the budget? Do I have enough people? Do I have enough control? And do I allow enough freedom for the people who are on the front lines to do their job, to do it right? If I give them a picture of the product, if I give them a logo, do they have the ability to say, well, this is going to look better on Instagram if I do it this way. It's going to look better on Facebook if I do it that way. And it's going to look better on a billboard if I do it this way. And do they have the ability to make all of that happen? I would love to work for that company. I have yet to come across one like that, because it all relates to corporate culture. So some corporate cultures are go make it happen. Some corporate cultures are absolutely top down. Here's how you will do it. You will not deviate. It must be done this way. And I can't say that one is better than the other.
Interesting. And nowadays we are in a transformative times. So every day we hear about a new technology coming in. Every day we hear about, I think, AI. You're right now majorly focused on AI and machine learning. So and you have this conference and you have this community of marketers. What has been your observation on adaptability of marketing landscape when it comes to these transformative technologies? Like, are they responsive, and what are some of the observations that you've observed in the industry when it comes to these transformative technologies?
Different companies are approaching this at different rates. I remember, back when the World Wide Web first came around in the early 90s, well, mid 90s, some companies said, we're going to just do digital transformation. We're going to get online. We're going to be there first, and we're going to show everybody how to do it. And they jumped in with both feet, and they made horrible mistakes, and they learned a lot, and they came out in the lead. And other large corporations said, we're going to let other people make the mistakes. We're going to learn from their mistakes. We're happy to be fast followers rather than leaders, which is, from a corporate culture perspective, logical and reasonable and financially responsible. And then others were, we see that it's coming, but we're too busy right now just staying alive. We're putting out fires. We're trying to make payroll, and building a website is just one more thing on top of everything. We don't have time. We can't. So replace website with machine learning. We're going to run straight into it and make it happen. And again, the usual, the Amazons and Googles and IBMs and Microsofts, of course they are. And then there are the people who are just trying to sell shoes, or they're just trying to sell jeans, or they're baking bread for a living. It's like, I don't have time for that. And then if I do decide that I'm ready, well, how do I make that happen? Do I go out and hire a bunch of data scientists and build something from scratch? No, you don't, because you can't, because everybody else hired them already. They are too expensive. So instead, rely on the new tools, the new technologies that are being included with what you're already using. So if you're using Google Analytics or you're using AdWords, you're already using machine learning. It's in the background. If you're using Salesforce, they've added on Einstein. If you're an IBM customer, here comes Watson. If you are a Microsoft customer, here is Azure ML. And those are pretty powerful, and you can do a lot with them. Or you can go to the small companies, the startups, where the venture funding is throwing a huge amount of money at, and start using those as point solutions. Here is one that will help you with email. Here is one that will help you with dynamic content on your website. Here is one that will help you with display advertising. And so you can take advantage of these technologies by buying rather than building. So every company is somewhere on the we're going to be first or we're going to wait. And then how do I get involved? Oh, we're going to build it ourselves. No, we'll just go out to the world and find it and buy it.
Interesting. And what is your personal take in it? So if with all these evolving technologies, right, you see all the shiny objects every day almost nowadays. And how do you tempt yourself to use or not use without, like, what are some of the best practices that you could suggest to someone who's in the same shoe and trying to figure out, hey, I'll be missing out or I'll be too early, too soon, and burn too much just to get a almost nominal outcome. What are some of the things that you would do or you would suggest someone who they should do to sort of keep themselves in check when they're going through this? We'll resume after a short break. This part of the podcast is brought to you by First Friday Fair. fastest AI-powered way to find your next opportunity. Check out the website firstfridayfair.tao.ai and find your next dream job. Let's get back to the podcast.
So, corporate culture comes, culture eats strategy for lunch. So, corporate culture says either I am willing to invest in an education, and so I'm going to go first and I'm going to try things, or I'm conservative, I'm going to be careful, I'm going to preserve what I'm doing, watch others, and then step in carefully, or I just don't have time. So me personally, let's go find out. Let's go investigate. Let's start a pilot project just to learn what it means to use these new technologies. And usually I need to do that in order to keep my best employees in the company. Because if I don't do new exciting things, my best employees are going to go somewhere else where it's more fun. So the people who are the most excited about new technologies, let's let them play. Give them their 10% or 20% time per week to go explore, to try out new tools, new techniques, new channels, new ways of communicating. Should my company have a team of people exploring virtual reality? Absolutely. Should I spend millions of dollars on it? Well, not yet. Let's see what they come up with. Let's watch the competition. But when it becomes a moment of management by in-flight magazine, when the board or the C-level people walk in and say, we need a virtual reality program, or we need to be able to tell our stockholders that we are actually doing machine learning, go make it happen. That's when I want to go to the team of people who've been doing it for a year and asking them, what do you think? Rather than, oh, well, now it's time to start learning. That's too late. And the critical part of success in this is the overlap between the knowledge of the industry, the knowledge of marketing in that industry, and then the knowledge of data science. Any one of those by themselves won't work. You have to have people who really know marketing well, who understand the data science, and then have to have data scientists who understand marketing. And then, oh, by the way, both of them need to know what industry. We're selling automobile tires. That's a completely different world than selling toothpaste. That's a completely different world than selling lawyering and attorney services. So what industry, what's the marketing about, and what's the technology? That combination, when the C-level says, we need to do this now, we're going to give you some money, we want people who have been playing with it for a while. So yeah, pilot project is the best practice.
Interesting. And now let's talk about the technology of the day. So AI, machine learning. So what are you seeing the impact of machine learning on marketing? Like what has been your observation on what's going around?
I'm seeing something I'm referring to as the machine bump. If you have a team of people who are really good at just sort of optimization, so go find me more prospects, improve conversion, improve shopping cart behavior, improve sales, then we get this steady climb of optimization. Then let's bring in machine learning. And this steady climb suddenly takes a big drop, which is a momentary function of what machine learning does. It is a baby learning to walk. And you stand the baby up and it falls down. And then it takes one step and it falls down. And it takes two steps and it falls down. And this is over days. And it's very discouraging because the people without the machine learning were doing fine. They were going right along. And then suddenly, oh, the baby keeps falling down. And then one day, the baby takes 5 steps and then it starts running and is out the front door down the street. And oh my God. So we're going along, we take a dip while the machine learns. Then there's this big rise because it learns things. It takes a step change in learning that the humans weren't doing. And then eventually it levels off again, and it's back to that normal optimization pattern. So the machine bump is being able to do amazing amounts of correlation above and beyond what humans could do for a while, and then it's back to sort of a normal increase. It's tough for companies to invest in something that falls on its face. Give it time, clean the data, change the model a little bit, and then boom, you get this big bump in, humans had no idea that people who were interested in buying sparkling water would also be good prospects for buying you name it, lipstick or motor oil or something that has nothing to do with it's totally illogical. And that's the magic of machine learning. It finds the correlations that are not logical, but they're true. And you can use that insight to get lift on sales. And I'm seeing that over and over again, particularly in the prospecting world. Here are my best customers. Here are all the attributes we know about them. Go out into the world and find other people who look like my best customers and advertise to them. Well, that's something that marketing people have always done, except that we look at it logically, reasonably, emotionally, and the machine says, well, if they're shoe size 8 and they wear glasses and they go grocery shopping on Tuesday, therefore they will respond to an ad that's bright red. And a human goes, what, are you nuts? But it's true. So that's the interesting thing. Now that's where we get the bump. You can do that 1 or 2 times, and then you have discovered those weird correlations, and you're back to just, okay, what if we twiddle things a little bit just to get a little bit of lift, and we're on the optimization track again.
Interesting. So I think from my side of the world, on data analytics side, whenever I hear this, and AI is right now is the hottest technology out there, machine learning, it's pretty much like we all are uttering its name almost every couple of times nowadays in a single day. So whenever I hear a lot from companies who say, hey, I'm using AI for my decision making and all, I get terrified with that. I get terrified with the fact that, hey, AI, so the technology is great to help you, but you still have to own your own risk, right? So technology can sort of, right? You cannot, because what I'm seeing from my end is slowly it's drifting, that they're outsourcing their risk to, hey, AI, just you do go and do stuff, right? And I think you shared some of that sentiment on dependence on technology, right? As one of the critical concern. So what's your take on the marketing side of things? Like, do you see the same pattern where sort of marketers say, hey, I would rather have AI take the blame and hit anything you rightly pointed out, the technology is easier to blame, and I just show it's like, if successful it's me, if it's failed it's the AI.
Yeah, I'll be happy to take the credit and give the blame to the computer. Sure. Yeah. So there are 3 things that the human is going to remain responsible for. Number 1 is, what problem are we solving? So do you want to increase conversion rate? And the machine says, oh, all we have to do is stop advertising. Okay, well, that was the wrong problem to solve. I want to increase sales. And the machine does all of its thing and all of its testing, and it says, oh, the best way to increase revenue is to cut your price in half. And then you'll sell a lot more. Oh, yeah, no, wrong problem. How do I increase profitability and customer satisfaction at the same time? That's the right problem. And it's really complicated. It's going to take a long time. So let's find little problems to solve along the way. How do we get a better open rate from our email? How do we get people to put it in their shopping cart? Just do one step at a time. So what problem do we solve? Because the machine, it doesn't care. It has no opinion about which problem to work on. That's up to the human. Number 2 is, what data should the machine consider in order to solve that problem? Well, in this world of big data, we say, just give it everything. Just pour it all in there and let it sort it out. Well, if you give it too much, then it's going to come up with a very low confidence answer because there's too much noise. And if you give it too little, it'll come up with a very high confidence answer that's wrong. So if I flip a coin 5 times and it comes up heads 5 times, the machine says 100% confidence it'll come up heads next time. Well, that's wrong. If I flip a coin 1,000,000 times, the machine says chances are 50-50. Not useful. So it's got which data do you give the machine? And that is a matter of trial and error. That's something we have to learn. Is time of day important? Is behavior important? Is the kind of device they're reaching us on important? Let's figure that out. So what problem do we solve? What data do we use? And then the third one is the answer the machine giving us reasonable? And I refer to this as the smell test. If the machine says, cut your price in half, no, that's not reasonable. We're not going to do that. If the machine says, sell a loss leader for an amazingly small amount of price in order to build your database and then market to your database with this message, I'm going to look at that and go, I'm not sure. Let's test that and see if it works. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't work, okay, well, next time it makes that recommendation, it's not going to pass the smell test again. So all 3 of these are human responsibility, and they are tied exactly to that individual's experience in marketing in that industry who understands the technology. So people process technology and the domain knowledge of what am I selling and how do I do my marketing and how well is this technology helping me.
Interesting. And I think one thing that you said about relying on culture in many of your decision making on sort of how to go about the sort of defining your marketing strategies. If I'm a startup, if I'm a startup and I'm responsible for taking the marketing forward, with startups normally they have the cultural their nuances baked right, and they're very premature, so they're trying to figure out things and they're seeing whichever things sticks on the wall. What would you suggest to these guys? Like, what would you suggest to the marketer who's working at a startup where they don't have a playbook when it comes to culture on what to go for? Like, what do you suggest?
Experimentation. Try stuff. The joy of a startup is how agile they can be, how quickly they can pivot. So try things, see what works, and then pay close attention to the results. And if something works well, does it continue to work well, or was it a one-time thing? Probably experimentation is the most important cultural attribute you can hope for, because the others are a condition of the people who started the company. Are people reckless, or are they prudent? Are people enthusiastic and willing to try crazy stuff, or are they only willing to take baby steps? These are things that come with personalities of the people who start the startup. So if I can pick an attribute, it would be experimentation.
Interesting. And what are some of the big opportunities out there today that you see that are ripe for disruption in marketing and digital landscape that you could share?
Well, let's see. So I'll have to say machine learning. Sorry, it is an opportunity that if you know when to use it, and the answer to that question is a situation where you have a great deal of data, because these machines require a lot of information, and you have a high transaction rate. And you have a small risk. Classic example is display advertising. I'm gonna, pay a reasonable amount of money for 1 million impressions, and I'm trying to put the right message in front of the right person at the right time. And if I get it wrong, it's not a horrible problem that I showed you something that you didn't click on. So the risk is pretty low. But if you did click on it, suddenly I can use that information to update the model. And the next person who looks just like you, I'm going to show them the same one. Oh, and now the machine learns. So lots of data, high transaction, low risk is an ideal use for machine learning. Another area of opportunity that I think is a slow start, but I see that it's going to be a big deal, is autoresponders, Autobots. I want to know what time the store opens in the morning. And if I go to the website, I can click around. Well, first of all, I can call and I can go through, if you want this, press 1, if you want that, press 2, and that's going to be 15 minutes of my life wasted, and I'm totally frustrated. So I'm not going to do that. I'll go to the website and I'm going to click here, 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 and here, and find location and find hours. And okay, well, that was 5 minutes wasted. Or I pick up my phone and I ask it out loud, what time does that store open? And it tells me. I have my answer. So I am going to be used to the idea of, is that flight delayed? Do you have those shoes in my size? Can I get it in a different color? Can I make a reservation for 6 people at 7 o'clock on Tuesday? I'm going to expect to be able to quickly interact with a machine to get specific answers to specific questions. That is a marketing opportunity. And it is going to be a serious challenge because people ask the same question in 500 different ways. So we need machine learning to help us understand the question and look in the database of answers and come up with the best one. And it's going to go through that same problem of it's going to fall on its face, and then it's going to learn, and then it's going to be great, and it will respond.
And what's your take on something like chatbots? I think
this is what I'm referring to. The chatbots, autoresponders, exactly the same thing. And then let's take that to the next step, which is frightening for marketing people. Is if I ask my listening device at home, whose name I will not say out loud, or everybody's devices will go off. I need more facial tissue. I need more toilet paper. Like, that's the same thing I always buy. Well, as a marketer, how do you break into that market? I'm going to buy the same brand every time. The device knows what brand I want. I'm just going to order the same thing. As a marketer, how do you interrupt that? That's a real challenge. And then we can talk science fiction. Science fiction says that I get a notification from my phone that my dishwasher is broken, and the error message is so severe that fixing it will cost too much. I need to replace it. And here is the system, here is the dishwasher that'll fit in the same place, and here is the appointment with the service person who can be at the house and deliver it next Tuesday. So I've canceled this other appointment that you had so you can be there so they can, and that was me buying a dishwasher. My phone did it for me. How does a marketer play in that world? How do you get your machine learning artificial intelligence systems to talk to my phone, my artificial intelligence systems, to be the replacement dishwasher for me? That's a problem that we're going to face, and I hope to be retired before that happens.
So, what's your take on Google Duplex? I think there have been a lot of talks. So, I always want to have a marketer's perspective. What do you think? How do you sort of decipher Google Duplex and what it's doing to marketing landscape?
So it is a brilliant technological leap forward. Machine learning and AI at its finest, with natural language processing and turning speech into text and text into meaning and being able to respond. Brilliant. And as usual, the technology folks didn't think about the sociological impact. And so the demonstration, which made everybody in the audience applaud, blew up Twitter with, "Oh my God, don't you dare." So as a marketer, I'm thrilled about the idea that we've got these technologies that we can use, but we need some rules of the road. And the rules of the road are, hello, I am the automated system calling on behalf of Jim Sterne to make a reservation at your restaurant. Do you have a table for 4 at 7 o'clock on Tuesday? And the person on the other end goes, really? Yes, I am an automated system and I'd like to make a reservation, please. Oh, okay, cool. Instead of, wow, I got pranked. I mean, imagine what happens if you use a system like that for automatic phone calls for politics, trying to convince people to vote for or against something. We need some serious regulations around that. If I get a phone call from my bank saying that there's a problem with my password, can I trust it? How do I trust it? What are the rules of the road? And that's something that we need to figure out.
Interesting. So I was talking to one of the agency executive couple of days back, and he was sharing the same concern that with these technologies, at least the ethical definitions of what corporates do or should not do, that's going to explode. So I think his point of view was that marketer would be in a lot of migraines going forward because of these sort of which is a go and not go strategy to move forward with these sort of very innovative solutions that looks pretty cool at first, but are really scary if you sort of dig deeper and see what's going on with that.
And the scary part is that I am going to break trust with my customers. And the problem, I mean, this idea of I didn't know it was an automated system calling me on the phone is a kind of a super obvious problem, but there are layers and layers of unobvious problems from an ethics perspective. On the one hand, ingrained bias in the data, and on the other hand, the ethics of privacy. So ingrained bias, if you use machine learning to recruit a new executive for your multinational corporation, and you say, show me, I get 1 million resumes and I can only look at 100 of them. So go through, look at all the employees of my business over the years and find the people who've been the most successful. Oh, says the machine, how do you define success? Well, they get positive reviews, they get promotions, they get raises, they have more people reporting to them. That is success. So that's a serious problem. That's part one. Bias in the data, and we see it all over the place. One article I read recently included an African American who went to use the automated sink in the washroom, but it wouldn't turn on because his hands were the wrong color. The machine did not recognize that as being the right tone to turn on the water. This is ingrained in the data, so we have to be very careful about it. On the other side, privacy. If you're tracking every mouse movement, if you're tracking the websites that I go out and my cookie is, I have a cookie from that website and the advertising network knows that I went to that website and tells you, so I get an ad based on the fact that I have this income or I live in this zip code or whatever it might be. There's some serious unanswered questions about, is it my data and should I have control over it? Did I opt in? Did I knowingly opt in? So these are going to be more migraines for marketers. There's a book title for you, huh?
I know. Yes, absolutely it is. So now let's talk about, in your crystal ball, like what would the next 5 to 10 year of marketing would look like? What would you see is the future of marketing?
5 to 10 years, anything can happen. 5 to 10 years is science fiction. It is, 10 years ago, I did not have an iPhone. 10 years from now, it's going to be embedded back here. It's going to order things for me that I didn't know I needed. I can't tell you. General things, sure. Machine learning, artificial intelligence, machine learning is going to be something that we're going to talk about for another 2 or 3 years, and then we'll stop because it will be the normal thing. It will be embedded in all systems. asking me if I'm using machine learning will be like asking me if I use a phone or a computer. Of course I do. Because this is not just being pushed down on the operating system, it's being pushed down into the hardware. It's that valuable, it's that important. The retail experience will change dramatically. We've seen this already. The retail apocalypse. We're seeing that I can go to the store to see one version of that thing, but if I need a different size or a different color, that's fine. Here, order it. We can order it for you right here. Done. It'll be shipped to you tomorrow. But the retail experience will have to change in order to encourage us to come out to the marketplace again. Somebody is going to come up with my personal AI system, and it's going to learn about me. It's going to do all the things that I'm afraid Google is already doing. It'll know what I'm interested in. It will know what I need. If I search for chicken stock, it will know that I'm looking for a poultry recipe and not an investment opportunity. So it will know me well enough to represent me in the world. And when I need that dishwasher, it can negotiate on my behalf. And talk about bias and privacy and who do you trust. That these are big issues. But my data, it will become my property. And I will negotiate with you about how much I give you. I will tell my doctor many things I won't tell you. But I will tell my accountant many things that I won't tell my doctor. And so I need that sort of control over this data that's in my phone, monitoring my heart rate and how many steps I take per day. And do I want to be advertised to? Yeah, I do. When it's time to buy a new car, I want to see ads. When I'm trying to decide where to go on vacation, I want to see ads. But as soon as I buy that camera, I do not want ads all over following me I already bought it, leave me alone. So I want these systems to be smarter. And that I see happening as well. So is that all science fiction? Sure. Is it all going to come true? Yep.
Interesting. So we are at the tail end of the conversation. So let's talk about your journey briefly. So in your journey, like what are some of the things that you attribute your success to, like that has helped you stay sane throughout your progression? Like, what would you call them, those qualities?
So first of all, I became fascinated by the written word. I was an English literature major in school, primarily because that's where my best grade points were, and primarily because the first day of class, the girl in the front row in Shakespeare class, really cute. We've been together for 40 years now. It's a good pick.
Fascinating story.
Yeah,
congratulations.
And so I have an ability to write. So 12 books is wow, how do you do that? Well, I love to write. I love to explain things. I love to do the research. So, I mean, what did I know about machine learning before I wrote a book? I could spell it. That's about it. And I wrote the book as an excuse to research, to do a deep dive. No, I can't go do those other things. I have to study this some more so I can write a book. So that's lucky me. I'm a writer, but I think curiosity is sort of the most important thing. If something is kind of interesting, chase it, go follow it. Unless it's just cat videos all day, and then you're wasting your time. Unless you want to do research about cat videos, and then you will find people who will pay you for the result. So be interested in something. That's part one. And then my philosophy for marketing, for being successful, is narrowing your focus. In 1993, I saw the internet as a place for marketing, and I could only find a handful of people who could tell me what they were doing. And when they explained it to me, I wrote a book. This is how you should do marketing on the internet. The book was published in 1995. And then by the year 2000, I needed to narrow the focus because everybody said, oh yeah, internet marketing. Okay, well, I need to find something more specific. Ooh, analytics. We can measure how good this stuff is. That's interesting. It's not just my opinion that a red button's better than a blue button. We can measure it. Let's focus on that. And then, now let's look at how machine learning can help analytics in marketing. So it's narrowing. If you are an entrepreneur and you want to become a well-known thought leader, then you be the one who brings this, and this together. And if somebody Googles that, you're the only one who shows up.
Interesting. And we ask all of our guests to share their favorite books that they have read that they like to share. So do you have some that you could share with our community?
I am a big fan of science fiction. I read lots of science fiction to just keep on top of what's possible and to understand the language. So if somebody starts to talk about quantum computing, I know what they mean, and I can follow the conversation for a while. And when it gets technical, fine. I'm not a physics major, so fine. But I get it. So I love that. And then on the other side, I love the absolutely practical, tactical, because it's not new ideas. It's just, don't forget. So for example, I haven't even read it yet, but I just bought a book called Shift by Sean Doyle, 19 practical business-driven ideas for an executive in charge of marketing, but not trained for the task. It's like, I need to read this book.
Yes.
I've been in marketing for 35 years. I need to read this book. Going to remind me of stuff. On the other hand, I'm also on an online book club right now reading Data Science for Business. So
good book.
I'm afraid I'm a bit of a book hound. Amazon loves me to the point where it's kind of they take over my office, and when I put on my conference once a year, I put my extra books out on the front rows to encourage people to sit in the front row, and that's how I make space for more books.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So now we're at the last question, and Jim, thank you so much for being extremely generous with your time and helping us understand big data in marketing. So if our listeners and viewers would take away something from this conversation, like what would you think they should take away? What would your closing remark for our listeners and viewers be?
Keep trying new stuff. Don't be distracted by the shiny object, but keep trying to figure out how to make it useful for you and how to make it useful for improving the customer experience.
Interesting. With that, Jim, thank you so much. Again, you're always welcome back on the podcast.
Thank you.
Wish you nothing but success, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I thought I was sick of home, but actually I was homesick. Never really knew that I would have to grow up so quick. I'm so uncomfortable, don't know anybody here. Just a couple dudes that I met once, that's it. And I go into the booth feeling nervous. Got butterflies in my stomach like I'm so worthless. Is the mic on? I don't know how to work this. Inside I'm breaking down, I hope I'm not up on a